My name is Muhammad Ryan Hidayat, and this is the video of my project 2. And in this project 2 I will do 2 tasks, which is in the part 1 I will do a presentation with the selected topics, and in the part 2 I will do a case study regarding a syntax tree diagram. And for the part 1 project 2, I choose 2 topics that are relative clause and subject auxiliary inversion. Okay, so first I'm going to present the relative clause. Okay, so first, what is a relative clause? So a relative clause is a clause that gives more information about a noun, like a person, thing, place, or idea. And it usually begins with relative pronoun or adverb. You can see the relative pronouns. There are who, whom, which, that, whose, where, and when. Here's the example. My brother, who lives in Italy, is coming next week. So the who lives in Italy, the who lives in Italy is the relative clause, and it begins with relative pronoun. So why do we use relative clause? We use relative clause to add extra information about a noun, avoid repeating information, and make sentences more detailed and natural. So you can see this. I met a teacher. She teaches English. It feels unnatural and too repeating. So instead, we can say, or we can write like this: I met a teacher who teaches English. So here are the relative pronouns in English. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. First, we have who and whom, which is used for people. You can see in the example, my friend who recently moved here is a great word. So so my friend is the people. So we use who. Okay, and next, which, it uses for animals and things. In the example, my laptop, which I bought years ago, still works well. See, the laptop is a thing, so we use which. And next we have that. In the example of sentences, the car that I bought is blue. That can take people, animals, and things. So it's more flexible. Next, whose. Whose is to show possession, people, and things. For example, we have the woman whose car was stolen reported it to the police. So it describes the woman's car. So it describes the possession of the woman. In this case, is car. Next, where to describe the places. And the example of the sentence: we spent our holiday at the beach, where we made great memories. So where is describe the beach. So yeah, as the function, where is used for places. So yeah, the sentence is correct. Next we have when. When is used for time expression. For example, this is the time when we celebrate. Yeah, it shows the time example, like when. And last we have why, to show the reasons, of course. In the example, that is the reason why I am upset. Okay. Next we have types of relative clause. So there are 2 types of relative clause. There are dividing relative clause and non-dividing relative clause. Dividing relative clause gives essential information. Without them, the sentence is unclear. And in the dividing relative clause, no commas are used. Next, non-defining relative clause. The non-defining relative clause give extra information. The sentence is still clear without them, and commas are required. We can see in the example, right? The example of the defining relative clause: the student who sits in front is very active. if we erase the who sits in front, the sentence becomes ambiguous. Like the student is very active. Which student is very active? Who sits in front? So it's defining. So it gives essential information. Without them, the sentence maybe become a bit ambiguous or a bit unclear. Or the phone that I bought yesterday is expensive. In the sentence, the phone that I bought yesterday is expensive, we use relative clause that. As you can see, the phone, if we erase the relative clause here that I bought yesterday, it becomes ambiguous because the phone is expensive. It doesn't declare which phone that is expensive. And next we have the example of non-defining relative clause. And as in the slide, the non-defining relative clause uses commas. So my teacher, who is very kind, helps me a lot. So if we erase the relative clause who is very kind, it's still understandable and not ambiguous. So the sentence is become, my teacher helps me a lot. It doesn't matter like who in this description, it doesn't matter. It just describe the adjective or the teacher. Next we have Jakarta, which is the capital of Indonesia, is very crowded. The main clause is Jakarta is very crowded. So without the which is the capital of Indonesia or without the relative clause, we can still understand clearly the sentence is, because the sentence is intended to be Jakarta is very crowded. Which is the capital of Indonesia is only the extra information that is describe the Jakarta or the noun. So next is the relative clause in syntax tree. So here's the syntax tree of the relative clause. We have the girl as a noun phrase, and RC here stand as a relative clause, and the verb phrase is dancing. And the verb phrase is dancing is contracts by auxiliary is plus the main verb dancing, and the noun phrase is constructed by the girl. And why do the relative clause make into the bracket of the noun phrase? Because the relative clause only modifies the noun. As I said before, the relative clause is because the relative clause is modifies the noun. So, and why the relative clause doesn't break down like the other one? Because relative clause is a dependent clause. We can use the triangle like this to mark the relative clause. It's actually it's up to you, because if you want to break down into the smaller one, you can, but you can do that you can do this instead of the breakdown one, because it more simple. You can make it simpler by making triangle like this. Okay, so that's for my presentation of the topic relative clause. And next we jump into the subject auxiliary inversion. So what is subject auxiliary inversion? So subject auxiliary inversion is a grammatical rule in English where the auxiliary verb moves before the subject. In standard order, you are happy, and in inverted order, are you happy, and it different meaning, because in are you happy it forms a question. Okay, so these are the auxiliary verbs in English. So these are they are the be verbs, do verbs, and modal verbs. So when do we use it, the auxiliary verb? We use the auxiliary verb in the four primary scenarios. First, to forming question. This is the most common. To negative adverbials, with the sentence starting with never, rarely, or seldom, and conditional. To make the conditional sentence formal, if clauses without the word if. And the last is the so or neither structure, agreeing with the statement. You can see more clearly in this. Okay, first, forming question. To turn a statement into question, identify the auxiliary verb first. So the statement in this table, she is working, the auxiliary verb is, and to make the question, we invert the auxiliary. So from she is working becomes is she working. from they have finished become have they finished, from you can help becomes can you help. And if there's no auxiliary verb, we have to borrow the auxiliary do, does, or did, like in the sentence below. He likes pizza becomes does he like pizza, to form a question. Next, negative adverbials. When we start a sentence with a restrictive or negative word to add drama or emphasis, we must invert. In a normal sentence, we say, I have never seen such a beautiful sunset. And in the inverted, we say, never have I seen such a beautiful sunset. It makes more emphasis or make more dramatic sentence to show emotion. And here's the common triggers in the negative adverbials. There are hardly, seldom, not only but also, and rarely and scarcely. Next, the use of formal conditional. In high level or formal writing, we can drop if by using inversion. This usually happens with have, were, or should. In standard writing, we write or we speak, if I had known, I would have stayed. And in inverted version becomes, had I known, I would have stayed. So it invert to make more formal. Like the other sample, if you should need help, call me. So if you need help, call me. Next, we have so and neither. We use inversion to show that the situation applies to someone else as well. Here's the example of positive agreement. I am hungry, so am I. And the negative agreement, I don't like cold weather, neither do I. So it inverts the auxiliary. Here's the summary and key takeaways. Subject auxiliary inversion is a tool for questions, emphasis, and formal tone. The verse auxiliary rule, only the first helping verb moves. And do support. Use do, thus, or did if no other auxiliary is present. And where order matters. Inversion is the exceptions to the SVO rule in English. Okay. So that's for my presentation for the part 1. And in the next video, I will continue to the part 2, which is the case study regarding syntax tree diagram. Okay, so here's my video of part 2 of the project 2 regarding analyzing tree diagrams in the given sentences. Okay, so the first sentence is the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. So here's the tree structures or the tree diagram. The quick brown fox, which is a noun phrase consisting of the determiner the, adjective quick and brown, and with the head of the phrase noun is fox, and the verb phrase here we have jumps over the lazy dog, which is the verb phrase is consisting of verb jumps and prepositional phrase over the lazy dog, which is the lazy dog is noun phrase and consisting of the determiner the, adjective lazy, and the head noun dog. And for the deep structure, as the deep structure is an underlying representation, the deep structure level, this is a simple declarative sentence with no transformation. The subject, verb, and object are already in their basic positions. For underlying presentation, the subject, the fox, is described as quick and brown with the predicate jumps, and the object of preposition, the dog, described as lazy. And the deep structure meaning is possibly a fox performs the action of jumping over a dog. Okay, so for the next sentence is the girl who is wearing a red dress is dancing. For the structures of the tree is like this. We have the noun phrase the girl, which is consisting of the determiner the and the noun girl. And here's we have RC, which is stand for relative clause. And why is RC make appearance in the bracket of noun phrase? Because RC in this sentence only modifies the noun phrase. So RC in this tree modify the noun phrase the girl. So that's why RC make into the noun phrase bracket. And so why the RC looks like triangle like this? Because if there is a dependent clause, we can make simple like this. So we don't have to break down into the smaller parts. But it's up to you whether you want to break it or not. But in this case, I will make it simple because it's only dependent clause. And the verb phrase here is dancing, with the consisting of auxiliary is and the verb dancing. So the total sentence is the girl who is wearing a red dress is dancing. The main clause is the girl is dancing. Okay, so here's the deep structure explanation. This sentence contains a relative clause who is wearing a red dress. In deep structure, the relative clause exists as a separate embedded clauses describing the girl. And here's the underlying representation. The main clause, the girl is dancing, and embedded clause, the girl is wearing a red dress. And for the deep structures meaning, a girl dance and the same girl wears a red dress. The relative pronoun who is introduced later through transformation. Okay, for the next sentence is Zevano saw the Hezekiah with the telescope. And the structures of the tree is like this. We have the noun phrase, which is the proper noun itself, Zevano. And we have the verb phrase, saw the Hezekiah with the telescope. Here's we have the verb phrase using the prepositional phrase. The verb saw and the noun phrase, the Hezekiah, with consisting of determiner the and the noun Hezekiah, make it into the noun phrase. And here's the noun phrase is level with the prepositional phrase with the telescope, which is the consisting of preposition with and determiner the and the noun telescope. So the verb first noun phrase and prepositional phrase become the verb phrase. So the noun phrase is Zevano and the verb phrase is saw the Hezekiah with the telescope. And for the deep structure explanation, the sentence is structurally ambiguous, and its meanings can have two different deep structures. For interpretation, for the first interpretation, deep structures are instrumental. So the sentence Zevano used the telescope to see Hezekiah has the deep structures. Zevano saw Hezekiah by using a telescope. Or for the interpretation 2, Hezekiah had the telescope. So the deep structures, Zevano saw Hezekiah and Hezekiah had a telescope. The surface structures is the same, but the deep structures differ, which causes ambiguity. So it has potentially two meanings of interpretation of the deep structure. Okay, for the next sentence is she believes that the earth is round, and the structures of the tree diagram is like this. We have a pronoun she, which is a noun phrase, and we have the verb phrase believe that the earth is round. So the earth is round is complementizer clause or complementizer phrase. It functions as object of the verb believe. Okay, so the verb believes, and because the complementation phrase is the dependent clause, we don't have to break down into the smaller part. We can make it more simple like this as in the sentence before. So the deep structure explanation is the sentence contains a complement clause introduced by that. In deep structure, the belief takes a prepositional object. And for the underlying representation, here's the main clause C believes something, and the embedded clause is the earth is round. And for the deep structures, she holds the belief that the earth is round. The complementizer that marks the embedded clause but does not change the core meaning. Okay. For the last sentence is the house where I grew up has been demolished. Okay, so here's the structures of the tree. We have a noun phrase, the house where I grew up, and the verb phrase has been demolished, which is it is a passive sentence. Okay, first we break down to the noun phrase. Here's the noun phrase. We have determiner the and the noun house, and we have RC to modify the noun phrase the house. Because it's dependent clause, again, we don't have to break down into the smaller part, but it's flexible. It depends on you whether you want to break it down or not. And we have the verb phrase has been, which is auxiliary has been plus verb as the formula of the passive sentence is be plus verb 3, and in this case we have a be has been and the verb demolish, which is has been is an auxiliary verb, and the verb 3 of demolished. And so yeah, the sentence is become like this: the house where I grew up has been demolished. And for the deep structures explanation, the sentence includes a relative adverb clause. Where I grew up, in deep structure, this clause is full sentence linked to the house. And underlying representation, which has a main clause, the house has been demolished, and embedded clause, I grew up in the house, which is the modifier of the noun phrase. And for the last, the deep structure meaning, a house existed and I grew up in it, and that house has been demolished. The relative adverb where replaces the prepositional phrase in the house during transformation. Okay, so that's for the part 2 of the project 2 regarding analyzing the tree diagram of the given sentences. And thank you for watching.